Welcome back tonight on Power Brief. We are here discussing the wrangles in Jubilee Party, and we are trying to establish the cause and possible solutions to what is happening, the purge in the National Assembly, in the Senate, and the most likelihood another purge that opinion shapers are talking that it will come into the executive. Mr. Milton Lucheri is in the house, accompanied by Mr. Philip Mwangale, who are helping us to look into this matter. We welcome your overwhelming feedback on our social media platforms. Guys, before we went for a break, all of us had admitted that there are factions in the Jubilee Party. And we get back to Mr. Lucheri.
Yeah.
How healthy is that, where we have a faction that is for the deputy party leader and another faction for the party leader? What informs such a thing, or what do you think informed those factions to arise? Remember, these are two influential people who came together to form a government, you know, the political landscape of Kenya, but at the end of the day, you find that within themselves, there are two factions.
Thank you, Obwana Cornelius. You see, Kenya is a democratic state, and it is founded on the tenets of democracy. Democracy is you speak your mind, whether you're the majority or whether you're the minority. You speak your mind, but now it will be the majority who will do it, who will win. That is why they say the majority have their say, their way, the minority have their say. Okay? When you look at Jubilee Party, Ruto is not an individual per se. He has a following. And in fact, by him coming together with Uhuru, he came with a political capital. The leaders who actually believed in his agenda. Okay? So you cannot say that now that we've formed a political party, then you sever all your democratic right, including freedom of expression, just because you're in a party. Okay? It doesn't say that. Maybe the expression of this democratic space is what is angering some of the leaders within the party. You know, maybe they expected that when we bring you on board, we expect you to behave in a particular manner, but you are not behaving in that manner. That is why you have to be whipped out. Okay, so for me, if you ask me, yes, there are factions within the party, but that is healthy for democracy. And in fact, even we have the government and we have the opposition, and that is the tenets of democracy. That is how it's supposed to be, so that we keep each other in balance. Okay, but now it's so unfortunate what is happening in the Jubilee Party, that you cannot express your opinion, you cannot express your thoughts, your feelings without suffering the punishment of the party. So that is where the problem comes in.
Okay, let's hear from Mr. Mwangale briefly, because there's something that is coming up which I'm not introducing, but I'll introduce after your feedback. What are the sources or the cause of these factions? Is it the freedom of expression, as Mr. Lucheri is putting it, or what is your version?
There are two things in my view. One is the nature of political party systems, which I have stated before, that these parties are owned by individuals, and those individuals call the shots. And if you do not play to their tune, then you risk being thrown off the orchestra, which is what is happening in Jubilee. If you're not playing to the tune of the owners of the party, and Uhuru is just a front man. We have owners of the Jubilee Party. Yes, those who are calling the shots. And I have stated before that President Uhuru was not really bothered by DP William Ruto carrying out some roles that the president will ordinarily carry out. In fact, he was very much okay with Ruto being his principal assistant. He sent him out to missions abroad, outside the country, high delegation meetings that you will expect the president will attend. He sent him out across the country to do various things in his name. Their breakdown came up when it became apparent to those who are interested in power around the presidency, that if William Ruto will continue in that fashion, then Uhuru Kenyatta, the president, stood to be remembered for nothing. And you've heard people say that his legacy was at stake. What really was at stake was that he will be remembered for nothing. And if that was the case, then those in the Mount Kenya region would lose the political goodwill that perhaps they would have gained over time. That was the first issue that arose. The second issue is really about political interests. Political power plays within not just Jubilee Party, but within government, because Jubilee is the ruling party. There are people who, and most of the time we shy away from this reality, that there are people who are interested in business deals, in tender deals, just interested in power around the president and around the presidency. And William Ruto stood as a threat to their deals, as a threat to their development, as a threat to what they have amassed over time. So he's not being fought because Jubilee Party is no longer healthy. He's being fought because he's a threat to some political and wealth interests of some individuals within those. Some of those individuals are within Jubilee Party. Some are without, but they have a very keen interest with power, especially now that we are looking towards 2022. If Uhuru Kenyatta was in his first term, he would be campaigning. I tell you, he would be campaigning. In fact, if you go back to the archives, you would discover that there was no time where he was not campaigning in his first term. I mean, DP William Ruto was not doing anything strange, at least in our political atmosphere. That is what these politicians have been doing. It is wrong, yes, but they have been doing this. So the fact that they are coming out to say, you have been campaigning, you have been outshining your master. I mean, if your master has not complained that you're outshining him, then, I mean, what is really the issue? So there are people who have not been comfortable with the DP William Ruto wielding some authority within government, because that goes against their political interests. So there are those two things. First, our political party setup that is founded on deceit, it is founded on trickery, it is founded on betrayal. Basically that, most of the time, and I think political science students most of the time would be told that for you to excel, especially in the Kenyan political space, betrayal must be
it's a card in it.
Yes.
Now,
so those are things that have
Mwangale,
contributed. Yes.
Let's look at the foundations upon which Jubilee was formed and the agreements that they had. There are those ones who believe that the agreement was that the president goes for 10 years and then his deputy for 10 years. And also what happened from the first time is that it was a coalition, 50-50. But at the same time, the matter of him outshining the boss came up. Do you also read from the same book like Mr. Mwangale that it is indeed true that the president was comfortable with whatever the deputy was doing, but the issue of outshining the master has come from those ones around power?
Outshining the master is an excuse. Is a convenient excuse that has been used by a system that is normally called the deep state. It is a very convenient one, and anyone can easily buy into it on the account of the activities that the deputy president has been engaged in the past couple of years. So according to me, I don't think he tried to outshine him. No, he didn't. He was just doing his own thing as a politician. A fish always swims. If you stop a fish from swimming, it ceases to be a fish. Okay, so it's the same thing. The politician will always be a politician. But now about the contracts and the agreements. Okay, number one, there's a very sad thing about contracts and pre-election agreements. Yeah, history has proved us time and again that pre-election agreements are never honored. You remember the 2002 Kibaki and Raila memorandum, and then there's something Raila said that alichukua memorandum akafanya nini, akaenda nayo msalani. Yeah, something like that. And then come to 2000 and I think it was 7 when ODM Kenya and ODM the circumstances under which it was formed. Of course, it was pre-election agreements. They never agreed. Okay, and so one had to bolt. Okay, and then now comes the Jubilee one. Okay, so there is a history of pre-election agreements not being honored. So it is not anything new. Okay, so it would be foolhardy for Ruto to have believed entirely on that contract. And if he had invested a lot of political capital on that agreement, then his foundation was very shaky. No one will tell you in this country that I will go for 10 years and then after 10 years you come and you'll be the president. And that is what happened. Never. It has never happened. Since independence, that has never happened. So that pre-election agreement is a no-brainer. There's nothing to it. So
still on this matter, Mr. Lucheri, I'm glad we have an advocate in the house. Wakili, there are those people who talk of how the DP has exhibited himself for the past 7 years is because the Constitution does not give the president power to fire or just hire a deputy president anyhow. And when it comes to the election, even the name of the running mate appears on the ballot box. Do you think the Constitution has also been part and parcel of what has, for those ones in quotes who think that it has given the deputy president a lot of powers?
First, I must begin by saying we have a very perfect constitution, but it appears that it is perfect but for the wrong society, because we do not seem intent on implementing this constitution, on embodying the values that the constitution gives unto us. The other bit I would say is that those who claim that the deputy president has been carrying himself in a way that is more powerful than his assigned duties are wrong, because when you have the president and then you have the constitution saying that the deputy president will be the principal assistant of the president, that is just a step below the president. And a principal assistant is not just a secretary. He's not just an assistant. He's the principal assistant to the president. That comes with a lot of power in itself. It means that the things, and we must give it to him, the things that he has been doing, he has not been doing those things without the knowledge of the president first. He has not been doing those things without the approval of the president. When he goes to launch projects, he has not been launching those projects drawn from his office. These are things that the president has and had approved. And I've mentioned before, the president was very much okay with his principal assistant calling the shots in many other scenarios. But there's a lot that now dialing back to the agreements and contracts that were entered between the president and the deputy president. I remember the roadside declaration by President Uhuru, him saying 10 years, Ruto 10 years. It says a lot about our value system. Milton has mentioned that we have a history of contracts and agreements that are broken down, that are not honored. It says a lot about our value system. And I have been on record saying that in as much as we might laud the BBI as our savior, it really is not. One of the things that we really must hit to the core or to the root of is our value system. Because if somebody can give you an undertaking and a few months down the line break that undertaking, breach that undertaking without blinking and without repercussions whatsoever, then that means that we do not value our word. Our word means nothing. So contrast that with countries where, and these are matured democracy, which is a level we aspire to get to. In those countries where if a leader says something, then he will be held account to his word. If he breaks that promise, then it is construed to having broken the law. And I think that is what we need to look at. We have a constitution that talks about our national values and principles. We must live by those values. We must live by those principles. So if the president, I've heard people say, it was just a declaration. People say things in the heat of the moment in politics. We should not be living like that. We can't live recklessly and expect that our democracy will be matured. We expect that our governance systems will pick up. We must be accountable, not just for our actions, but even for our words, because those words speak a lot to our character. Yes.
Let's go somewhere here, and something is coming on light. After the handshake in the year 2018, some of the allies of the deputy president, Babayao Waititu, the former governor of Kiambu, talked of when you see the former prime minister around, even when you are praying, you should not close your eyes. Problems started emanating from this whole matter. And those who looked at it talked of if the president is bringing the country together after the disputed 2017 elections, we don't want to go there because everyone saw what happened. Now, don't you think it was high time from that time henceforth for the deputy party leader to maybe approach his crew first and tell them to tone down as he seeks to find more from the head of state, the genesis of the handshake, or what could have happened here? Because for someone who is keen, could see that many things emanated from this matter.
You see, I have stated this and I stated it elsewhere, that the handshake was, much as it helped to bring the country together, wasn't so much about bringing the country together.
True, very true.
But it was more of perpetuation of status quo. And of course, that also added to the elimination of one Ruto from the Jubilee party. I stated that even before these things started happening.
Was he eliminated by actions, or he was told to?
You know, there's a famous Swahili proverb that says, "Kufukuzaya kwambii toka." You just see the things he does. Yeah. He does things and which makes you very uncomfortable to stay. You cannot stay, and that is exactly what is happening. Okay, and you'll find that Raila has mastered that art. Okay, he knew that by him confronting Jubilee face on, they could not have won, because even in the parliament, both houses, Jubilee had the numbers more than the ODM. So the best way was to get into the party, okay, and then sink it from where? From within. And that is the same thing he did with his LDP with and Kanu. When he alisema jogo imemeza, jogo imemeza, tinga ikasahau kuzima engine, you know, and that is how he crumbled Kanu. So it is the same technique he used that he applied also in Jubilee. Therefore, Baba Yao and the likes had seen that earlier on. And true to his word, very few months after that, the first casualty was Baba Yao himself. Yeah. So you see, there is that element of you getting into the party and torpedoing from the bottom and let it sink. You let it sink from the. No one knows who did that, but you just see it sinking. That is one. And then secondly, there is the inclusion of one Gideon Moi, who was Johnny come late. He has come into the coalition.
Did Gideon come late, or he was somewhere with the Jubilee before the election, the re-election of 2017? Wakivalishana kofia between the head of state and Gideon.
You see,
was he brought on board then, or there isn't one?
No, that was just an endorsement.
That was just an endorsement. Now that he has come on board, and the reason why I'm bringing this point is to explain the politics of perpetuation, okay, and self-preservation, okay, because you know who Gideon is. He's the son of the former president, and you know who Uhuru is. He's the son of the former president, and now he has been brought on board, okay, tactfully, against the wishes of Raila. That is why he did not sign the coalition pact. And ODM has come out very strongly that we do not support this kind of a pact. And if we are going to sign it, there has to be these conditions to be met. You understand? So basically, it's about perpetuation of self-interests that are there. That is why the stranger in the block, who is actually the deputy president, has to go. Okay, those things are calculated to make him so uncomfortable in the party that he cannot stay. Therefore, he has to go. And that is the joy. And even as he says that the owners of the party are the ones who are actually manipulating all these circumstances. Yeah. So basically, that's what I wanted to comment about. Yeah.
Now, Bwana Wakili, let's look into this matter. Since the handshake, as we've just quoted Baba Yao, was it time before the handshake? Because rumor might have gone out. Okay, forget maybe no one knew what was being planned behind the scenes. After the handshake, was it time that the deputy party leader was to approach his boss and try to look deeply on how is it going to benefit the two of them? Because these were people who were working together, and they were supposed to work together to see the second term successfully together.
If it is about approaching the president and trying to work
Or who is to
our way
approach
out,
you in this matter?
well, it will come both ways because they are leaders, in as much as they occupy different positions, they are leaders almost of the same stature. That is the reality on the ground. When they were coming into power, it's not that Ruto was just picked from the darkness and brought in to be deputy president. I mean, they had almost equal following, equal influence across the country. But that said, after the handshake, we saw the president meeting the deputy president. At the time, the president walked into Harambee House Annex, and we are told they had lunch. They were enjoying a cordial relationship, and at that time, rumors were that they were still enjoying a very good relationship. But I think there was a lack of wisdom on both sides, on the president's side and on Deputy William Ruto's side. Because when you are the president and you have a deputy that carries a large following, has a political influence, you do not pull the move that the president pulled on your deputy president. And you know, he was not just doing that on the person of the deputy president, he was doing that on the deputy president and his following. Because the reality, our political reality is that individuals have a lot of influence, political influence. So he pulled the wool over the DP's eyes and those that are allied to the DP. And the wisdom that was lacking in DP William Ruto's side was to begin fighting that handshake from without. Well, he knew what Raila Odinga was coming to do, but I think he should have tried to address that within their political space within the party and with the president. I think that was failing. The other bit that is also unfortunate, and Milton has made mention to this, and I think we must be very clear that the handshake was not really about uniting Kenyans. It was not really about bringing Kenyans together. We can say, oh, the world has congratulated Kenya for this and that, but unity was an unintended consequence. Peace was unintended. I mean, if ODM was fighting against electoral injustice, then why are we not seeing those reforms happening? They're not even within the BBI. The BBI largely is about political influence and political positions. That we must say. So if that was the situation, the fruit of a poisonous tree cannot give life. They're just poisonous. And what we are seeing is the fruits of a poisonous tree. So one of the things that has been missing in our political discourse is the well-being of the nation. We have people who are after purely their own interests. Raila Odinga purely after his own interests. Uhuru Kenyatta purely after his own interests. You'd hardly find, there are very few political leaders, and this is the sad reality, very few political leaders who will stand and say their interests are for Mwananchi. Very few. And those few have their voices silenced because those that have their say are people who are wealthy, people who call the shots. You know, even the Bible says a poor man is despised in his own household. You can be very wise, wonderful ideas. If you're poor, no one will listen to you.
Many thanks, gentlemen. Our time is up, but there is something that I want both of you to leave the nation with, and also to these two leaders, that is a president and his deputy. There is a meeting that is yet to be convened, maybe to discuss what comes next. But those ones who are speculating are saying that there's more purge coming to the National Assembly where Duale and company are. The two of you, what will you say? Do you want this purge to continue, mwenye nguvu mpishe? Or do you want the head of state to take charge? Or thirdly, you want them to come together, being a ruling party, and find a way on how they can wind up their term and everything to come to an end in 2022 to leave the country maybe to other leaders. There are three options. One, coming together and seeing on how they can end their contract, which is remaining 2 years. Another one, mwenye nguvu mpishe, the two factions wenye wanasema ni sisi tulileta hii na sisi tukaleta hii, and thirdly to leave the head of state to take charge of everything, him being the party leader and the head of state. Briefly and to the point, the three options.
Exactly. We are fighting a crisis. There's an economic crisis. There's a health crisis. It is very unfortunate that the president could engage in such kind of things. Okay, so my advice to the president is just stop this this kind of show that you're doing. Let us address the immediate concern of the country. The party disciplining and those kind of things does not bring does not affect the mwananchi, okay? And
So
right
in
now,
summary, Mr. Milton,
yes,
just pick one option that I've given, which Mr. Mwangale will also give one option. Our time is
see,
up, then we go. Because they're watching you.
Thank you. You see, if we stick by that, the three options that you've given us, then we will not be adding value to the entire discussion.
Then pick another option in summary.
So the thing will be, okay, let the president address the current crisis. Let him address the health issues, the public health because of COVID-19. Let him address the economy. That is the best thing to do. About politics, let him bring Ruto on board. Let them talk. They have been invited by the Kalenjin Council of Elders. They have been invited to speak and iron out their differences. That is the only thing a gentleman can do. Sit down, talk, iron out issues, instead of displaying public embarrassments and this kind of things in a midst of economic and public health crisis. So the president needs to call deputy, let them talk, iron out these issues, because they even talked together when they were forming the party.
Many thanks, Mr. Milton. Wakili, do you pick one of the three options, or you also have yours in summary?
No, I have mine because one of our systemic issues is denying or being in denial of the catastrophic and being obsessed with the problematic. And the catastrophe is that we have a leadership issue. The problem is that we have Jubilee fighting. So this will be my advice to the deputy president, that he should stop playing to the gallery. We know that whatever is happening attracts sympathy from certain quarters, but as a statesman, as a leader who has a political mandate from the rest of this country, let him calm down. Take the humble route. And if the president is not coming to you, then go to the president. I mean, if the Jubilee Party is calling for meetings like the NEC meeting that is coming up in a day or two, attend those meetings. If you're pushed out, let the country see that things are actually tough and you can't handle it. For the president, I mean, you can handle all the coalitions that you can get for you to get political goodwill, but that does not solve the issue. The issue is that you have an issue with your deputy president, and it's not just the deputy president, but also his influence across the country. And it is in your best interest as the president to unite this country, and that does not happen by pulling together or pulling to yourself a certain category and ostracizing a large percentage of Kenyans. That will be my advice to you.
Many thanks, gentlemen. It's been a heated, though a sober conversation from Mr. Milton Lucheri and also Wakili Philip Mwangale. We've looked into this matter of the alleged two centers of power in the ruling party, that is Jubilee. Jubilee is not just a political party, but a party mandated to rule the people of Kenya from the year 2013 to 2017 and also from 2017 to 2022. They have given their position, personal opinions, and they have brought out ways on which the deputy president, the president, and other stakeholders can come on board to see that Kenya finds a solution amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We appreciate your overwhelming responses and participation on our social media platforms. From me, Cornelius Omuse, till the next Thursday, I wish you a good night.